Testosterone has lowered 50% in the last 50 years. And 1/3 of Denmark is subfertile. That means they're right in between normal fertility and infertility. So maybe they've been trying for kids for 6 months and they still can't. Maybe they just got a kid after their 7th month of trying. That would be subfertility. These are some crazy numbers, because the more that our testosterone lowers, the worse this fertility issue is going to be. Man and woman. I see a lot of women say, oh, I'm okay drinking milk, I'm okay eating these soy products, these things that are known to be estrogenic, because I want high estrogen. And that's cope, and it's not even their fault. We're not taught that these foods that are deemed estrogenic, that's enough for the men to say, oh, I don't want that. Any man who cares about his testosterone. But these foods that are estrogenic aren't necessarily of estrogen. They're what are called phytoestrogens. And these are basically weird estrogen mimics that will bind your estrogen or testosterone as a man and disrupt it, because it doesn't actually work as estrogen does. So as a woman, drinking milk or consuming soy or flax seeds or any of these foods that contain these phytoestrogens will still mess with your estrogen levels. So all of these tips, all of these topics matter for man and woman. Now, why should you care about fertility? Sure, our testosterone's dropping and estrogen for women. What does this mean? The more depolarized your hormone balance is, the worse off you're going to be. So if 1/3 of Denmark is subfertile right now because of testosterone levels, then it's just going to get worse, because testosterone hasn't been going up. It's not going to go up anytime soon. It's on a constant downtrend, and that's about 1% every single year. The more depolarized this number is, say you had 400 nanoliters of testosterone, and now you're at 390 the next year, your estrogen levels are going to stay the same. So eventually you get to a depolarized spot of 50-50 balance, testosterone and estrogen. And then you're going to be like those couples in Walmart that you can't really tell who the man or the woman is, and they're buying their frozen pizzas and 32 packs of Coca-Cola. Those are the extremes, but that's kind of possible for our generation. A lot of them to be like this. And if we don't make a change now, that could be the potential for our future. Every man should want a kid. I'd say there's 3 factors as to why men don't want kids. The first one is that they've been convinced that they don't like kids and kids are unnecessary by societal norms. And my combatant for this is the fact that we see a lot of these mental health problems in the world. We have probably the highest depression rate in the West, highest anxiety rate, highest suicide rate. Our brains aren't functioning the way that they should. And I fully believe that this is because of the shift of our priorities. The way mankind used to function in its Judeo-Christian values is they would follow their purpose, whatever they think their purpose is, to be set out by God, and they reproduced. Because that was the command that God gave us. Be fruitful and work with your hands. We stopped doing that. We started prioritizing money. You see everyone who's going to college nowadays to be a doctor, they don't actually want to be a doctor. They want to be a doctor because doctors make a lot of money. They'll tell you this. Once you start prioritizing money, your life starts to lose value. And you start to become a wage slave. You find anyone that's made it, that's made a ton of money, none of them will tell you that's the best thing that's happened to them. A bunch of millionaires still kill themselves. It's a big problem, this materialistic ideology, because once you get that void and you think that money's going to fill it, it never does. So you start to think about, what are some purposeful acts I can do? Obviously, I have the one thing that I'm working towards, but maybe that'll get a little stale. I kind of need a side quest. Having a kid is that perfect side quest. You get to raise up the next generation of human beings, and you get to have a counterpart. Assuming you're not having sex outside of marriage, you're going to have a counterpart that you're married to, a spouse. You're very polarized towards them, and this kid is going to bring you closer to them. So there's so many benefits of children. The idea of hating children is a leftist lie. The same people who tell you, oh, you don't want kids. They're bipolar, depressed. They'll put it in their bio too. It's like we're in a mental health crisis right now. And it's a coincidence that it's the same time frame as the fertility crisis, the epidemic of purposelessness and materialism. Those are some big words, but basically, whenever you simplify your life down to, I want as much testosterone or estrogen as possible as a man or a woman, and I have to fulfill a purpose, do something masculine or feminine as a man or a woman, you start to see these things kind of not be so prevalent. They say it's because they have third world issues, but you see the people in Africa, they don't struggle with these mental health problems. They say it's because their biggest struggle is finding food, and once you have food and you're happy, once you're complacent, you start to have these issues with your mental health. You can't be complacent if you have a purpose that you're working towards every single day. And one of those things that is extremely purposeful is having a kid. So having a kid isn't for everyone, but I'd say 99% of people it is. Unless you're literally not attracted to the opposite sex, and your work is, you could primarily focus on your work and be happy for the rest of your life, then you should absolutely be focused on your fertility and making sure that you can have that little you. The next principle, the next problem is, what if you don't have money? If you don't have money, then you should still focus on fertility rates and an optimistic view of, what if you get that money? What if you get that promotion? What if your business pops off eventually? You shouldn't just disregard your hormonal health. I want you to imagine, you're working a tech job, you like tech, so it made sense for you to go into the company. Working for Google, you just got that promotion. You're making $250,000 a year. Plenty to be comfortable with 12 kids if you wanted. So you just recently happened to meet your polarized feminine spouse, and you can provide for a kid, so you decide, might as well. You try for a kid, she takes the pregnancy test, and it comes back negative. You think, oh, it must have been a coincidence, might as well try again, don't get disheartened. The second time around, it comes back negative. Third time around, same thing. 4, 5, 6, same thing. You tried for a full year. 12 failed pregnancy tests. You're technically infertile now. If you wish to have this kid, you're gonna have to adopt. Your sperm just isn't doing it. So if you don't prioritize your hormones now, you're taking the risk that when you get money in the future, even if you don't ever plan on getting the money, if it happens and then you want to have the kid, you're taking the risk of not being able to do that when the time comes. So it's the same idea of delaying the gratification of avoiding alcohol at the party, because when you grow old, your older self is going to thank you for not having drank the alcohol, for having abstained from the alcohol. Your older self who found the way to make the money will thank you for prioritizing your hormonal health so that you're able to have a little you running around. Now, before I get into the meat and potatoes of how to fix your hormonal health so that you aren't infertile, I want to address the environmentalists who maybe they live in India. India is technically overpopulated, and they don't want to bring more kids into the world and contribute to that overpopulation. To you, I want to say, overpopulation is a pretty big psyop that we've been sold. Whether this be through entertainment, the elites, the news. I'm not sure how we all learn this idea that we're somehow getting overpopulated, but it's not true. India may have a very dense population in the sense that they have a lot of people for the amount of land that they have. Some people say it's too much, but that really doesn't determine overpopulation. The thing that decides if a land is overpopulated or not, if there are too many people, is the availability of food. If you can fit 5-6 people in your household, then having 5-6 kids is not an issue because they fit in the amount of land that you have. The only time that a population being too large would be the problem. You see this in many books about overpopulation, and people in the past, whenever the past population was exponentially growing, it grew from 2 to 8 billion in like 50 or about 200 years. Something like that. You can look into the book. I'm not here to explain that to you. They were worried that we were going to run out of resources, but that's not a problem. You see this nowadays. We have plenty of food. We have plenty of natural resources, even though some people are telling us that they're running out. That's another psyop. You should want to have a kid. If you want to have a kid, you shouldn't let the idea of overpopulation stop you. If that didn't convince you, India's birth rate is declining. India's going to be amidst a population collapse just like everybody else is, because they're having less than 2 kids per 2 people. Meaning the population is going to steadily decrease, and if more and more people are going to be infertile, then you're not going to have a lot of people in India anymore. That's the only country that I really see is overpopulated because of their sheer amount of people per square inch in the country. If you live in a Western country like the United States or, I don't know, anywhere in Europe, overpopulation is not an issue. That's something that's been planted into our minds that isn't even true. Now, how should we optimize our hormones? I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of these tiny little things to increase your testosterone, estrogen by 1%. I'm going to go into the meat and potatoes so that I give you the most nutrient density per second of this video watched. I'm going to make a separate video. That's my plan. I'll make another video explaining all the little Chinese chemicals and things that you should avoid, the red 40s, the things that are cancerous, carcinogenic by nature. I'll make that video later. If you're watching this a couple weeks down the road, maybe that's already out. I'll link it or something. Go watch that. In order to optimize your hormone health so that you are able to produce children and that they're able to have healthy hormonal systems too, I have 4 factors. The first one being radiation. If you wear a smartwatch that has Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, or you sleep with a cell phone right next to your head, maybe you keep your cell phone in your pocket, or maybe you put it in between while your legs while you drive. Something about the radiation from that cell phone is going to drastically reduce your testosterone or estrogen. Think about it this way. If you keep your phone near your balls, it's going to warp some things and it's going to cause some problems. So your plan to take action should be to remove your cell phone from that area. I found that powering off your phone removes that radiation. Maybe turn it on airplane mode to turn off that Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, that cellular service that gives you access to the 5G. Remember those conspiracy theorists a couple years ago that were saying that 5G was awful for you? And then the scientists said, oh no, it's only so much 5G. That only so much 5G, we weren't meant to have that near us. We're finding that with later studies now. Neuroscientists like Andrew Huberman, who aren't so afraid of getting canceled, are telling you now, yeah, keeping your phone in your pocket is one of the worst things that can happen for your testosterone or estrogen if you are a lady. So keep your phone away from your genitalia. Next step, you need to avoid plastics. This is a huge one because we have plastics in everything. I know there's newer data that says it's more plastic, but the data that I know of says we consume 2 credit cards worth of plastic every single year. Now this is a problem because plastic, like all the other Chinese chemicals that are messing with our hormones, belongs in the category of endocrine disruptors. What these are little things that bind to your hormone carriers, just like the phytoestrogens I explained earlier. They bind to these hormone carriers and act as these hormones, but they don't actually know what these hormones do. So your hormone carriers pick these up, and you have less testosterone as a result. That's a simplified version of endocrine disruptors. You can look more into it on your own if you want. Maybe I'll talk about that in the nitty-gritty guide. But these are the basics. Anything plastic is going to belong in this category. You drink out of a plastic water bottle. That's really bad. Every single time that plastic sloshes around in a plastic water bottle, especially if it's heated up, it's going to be bad for you. If you microwave your food in plastic, that's another really big one. If you touch receipts, have you ever heard of BPA, bisphenol A? Whenever you touch receipts, they're coated in it. It's just how receipts are made in their little machines. There's a ton of BPA in receipts. You may hear about things that are BPA free or phthalate free. I'm pretty sure phthalates are what makes plastic stretchy, like plastic wrap is one that has a lot of phthalates in it as a result of being so stretchy. A lot of these health markets will say that their products are BPA free and phthalate free, but it's still plastic. Whenever they don't use BPA, bisphenol A, they replace it with an ingredient called BPS or BPF. It's the same thing, they're just rebranding it so that you'll pay extra money for whatever they're putting out. So, some actionable steps: avoid drinking out of those plastic water bottles. If you have your room filled with plastic water bottles after this video, shame on you. If you can afford it, buy a stainless steel water bottle. They're not too expensive. You can get one for like $20, $30. It'll last you a couple years. Mine keep breaking though. That's pretty unfortunate. But hopefully yours won't. Buy some stainless steel water bottles so that your water doesn't slosh around in plastic all day. That's a really big one that will drastically reduce how much plastic you're consuming. If you're gonna microwave foods, microwaves is another radiation thing. Might be something to think about. But if you have to, make sure you're microwaving them in glass or something that doesn't have a little plastic coating that's gonna get into your food. Just storing food. You can get Pyrex containers, you can get glass containers to store food in your fridge. That's another good step in the right direction. And then your clothing. There's some natural fabrics that we wear, like cotton, wool. I don't know so much about this, but I've heard bamboo is pretty good. If you wear anything else, the polyesters, the spandex, the nylon, that's all plastic that you're wearing on your skin all day. So I would understand if you can't avoid plastics in your polyester shorts. Maybe you have to wear a polyester shirt. But make sure, bare minimum, that your underwear is avoidant of this plastic. Buy 100% cotton underwear. I think the bamboo is okay. I'm not sure. Do your own research. But if you keep plastic that close to your balls, just like the radiation, it's going to cause problems. Now, 100% cotton, if you want to get really particular about your ingredients, 100% cotton doesn't necessarily cut it. Because if the cotton isn't organic, it's going to have pesticides on it. And pesticides don't wash off so well. So if you're wearing pesticides all day, that's another thing. I still think it's better than plastic, in my opinion. But if you get 100% organic cotton, it's even better. Now let's talk about pesticides. They spray all these little weird Chinese chemicals on the plants so that bugs don't eat them. It kills the bugs. Sure, they wash these off with water, but some of it still stays on the food. You buy an apple, you can scrape off the little waxy pesticides on your apple. It gets into all of our food. So a lot of people might be led to believe that organic is a scam, but buying the organic means less of the pesticides that are ultimately killing your hormone health. These are endocrine disruptors too. Who could have guessed? Everything's out to kill you, man. Okay, they wash them off in water. The tap water isn't even safe. They did a study with these frogs. They put them in a lake with atrazine, a pesticide commonly found in tap water, and it was a safe amount. I don't know who labeled it as a safe amount, but whatever the regulation is for atrazine, they put that in a lake with frogs, and the frogs started turning gay. And I don't think gay frogs can reproduce, so we got to avoid the atrazine. There's birth control in water. Birth control is literally a contraceptive. That's going to make you infertile too. So where's the happy medium? My suggestion, filter the water the best you can. Reverse osmosis is the best I know about. That's basically distilling the water. And you literally have to re-add minerals based on how much it filters it. That's the only way that I know about removing hormones and these chemicals from the water. Because they're so small, you can't just filter them out. I don't know if they're doing it completely intentionally. They might be. The elites. But it's hard. You can buy the best water filter you can. Think of it like an investment in your health. But that's pretty much the most you can do. If you're out at a restaurant, you're forced to drink tap water. It's a sad reality. I would recommend filtering it however you can. But that's another endocrine disruptor to be worried about. All right, the third and fourth thing I'm going to talk about are actual lifestyle changes. These are probably the most important. These are probably the bigger ones. I saved it for the people who are actually invested into the video. You're welcome. The third thing that is killing your testosterone or estrogen is your weight. If you're overweight or underweight, your hormonal balance is going to be completely messed up. People know that fat is estrogenic. Maybe you didn't know that. Fat is estrogenic. So if you have a beer belly, you're going to have a lowered testosterone. And you can see this in people. Like, you can see how big of an impact this is. Any guy who is fat isn't going to be having a primal level of aggression, of these high testosterone symptoms. He's going to be having mental health problems, because whenever your hormones are in a terrible place, you're going to have mental health problems. You see it over and over again. You see it in the Walmart couples. They're usually both fat. Fat kills your hormones. But being underweight does too. If you have a six-pack all the time, I'd say below 10% body fat, your body's not going to have what it needs to produce healthy hormones as well. So you have to find the happy medium. I'd say about 15% body fat should be your ideal, 15 to 20%. And I believe that dirty bulking, for those of you who go to the gym, there's a concept called dirty bulking where you eat a lot of food, processed garbage, in order to gain as much mass as possible. There's these shakes called Weight Gainer that's just a ton of carbs. You basically load up on your Pop-Tarts, donuts, and cereals, and you gain a ton of belly fat. This is really bad for your hormonal health. I'm not too stocky. I try. But I'm proud to say I've never dirty bulked, and I firmly believe that my hormonal health has drastically increased because of this limitation I put on myself. Humans weren't meant to be above 200 pounds. And dirty bulking with that goal of getting to 200 pounds, it's going to lower your life expectancy, and it's going to mess up your hormonal health. So why not just stay at a healthy athletic build? So what if you're insecure about your muscle level? Like, you can gain muscle on your current frame without eating a ton of food. The only benefit of eating a ton of food is making your frame itself larger. But you could still grow muscle while you're skinny. Look at any high-level athlete like Ronaldo. He's lean. He's not the most muscular person, but he still looks fantastic. So you don't need to gain weight that way. That was a side tangent. The last and probably most important thing that is disrupting your hormones, impacting your fertility and your children's fertility, is your quality of sleep. There's a lot to unpack in this. First off, you produce most of your hormones in your sleep. So if you're not getting a good 8 to 10 hours every night, if you're constantly sleep deprived, then your hormonal health is going to find a decrease as well. So you could be sleeping a ton, but if your sleep quality sucks, then your hormone production is still going to be impacted. You see this in sleep apnea. If you snore, you're probably at risk for sleep apnea. Sleep apnea is whenever you basically choke on your own breath whenever you sleep. And this comes from mouth breathing. So actionable step, focus on breathing through your nose as much as possible. I'm kind of sick right now, but that's the idea. I tape up my mouth whenever I sleep, even when I'm sick. This forces me to breathe through my nose. Just a little bit of tape right here. If you want to open your mouth, the tiny bit of resistance is going to stop it whenever you sleep, basically. And if you wake up, say, what if an emergency happens and I can't breathe? It's not that hard to rip some tape off your mouth. You can breathe through the sides. Like, if I close this, my testosterone just lowered by doing that. I hope you know how much I'm sacrificing for this video. Sorry for that one. Basically, breathing through your nose directly converts to testosterone or estrogen as a woman. You shouldn't be a mouth breather. It changes your facial structure. I see more and more people nowadays, their neck kind of combines with their chin. They're not even fat. It's from breathing through your mouth. If you breathe through your mouth structure will be like that all the time. So avoid it. That's a pretty easy, actionable step for you. Try to do your best to increase your sleep quality. This means looking at sunlight in the morning. Don't stare directly at the sun. Just try to experience sunlight as soon as you can. And I think watching the sunset is good for you too. And then avoid blue light. You can get blue light glasses for the nighttime. And that is going to make your sleep way better. Not looking at screens an hour before you sleep. Not eating directly before you sleep so you're not digesting while you sleep. The better you can make your sleep, the better your hormonal health is going to be. And the more optimized you're going to be as a human. I've talked about polarity a lot in my other videos. The more masculine you are as a man, the more feminine of a woman you're going to attract. Maybe you want a masculine woman, but maybe that's because you're a feminine man. The way that we were designed is for the man to be the leader and the woman to submit. So if you're not leading as a man, it would make sense that your brain starts to become a little more sad. As humans, we're going to find ourselves depressed and anxious a lot more when we don't act as humans should. So if you're staying up till 3 a.m. and sleeping till noon, maybe you're sleeping a lot, but you're still going to be depressed. That's all I got, guys. Thanks for watching this video. If you watched the whole thing, I'm going to say it. Like, subscribe. All right, I'm done. See you guys.